My name is Joanna Perez-Ray, and I'm from Chile. Originally, I started as a translator, English Spanish translator. And from there, I've been doing interpretation. And then when my life changed and I got married, then all my focus on my passions were kind of directed into raising my children. And that's how I got into education. So I would say that's my background.
And what made you choose the homeschooling route as opposed to more traditional forms of education?
Well, like many other parents, I think something happens in our souls when we have children, and we wake up to a certain, I'm not sure how to call it, but it's like you see your children and you realize these are persons, these are human beings with such a particular, I would say, a need or desire to learn. I realize now that looking back, if I hadn't had children, I probably wouldn't have never ended up in the path that I am because education was not in my radar. I was not interested. But once my kids were born, I like suddenly something happened and my whole mind and heart and soul is like wondering, how do I give them the best life that they can have, but at the same time, the best opportunity to be this amazing human being that I can see that they already are. And so when I think back in those years, I think that my husband and I just wanted to keep them at home and give them the freedom to play and, not waking up in the mornings. And we decided, okay, so we are going to be frugal. We're going to have this one income. He's going to provide for us. I'm going to stay home with them. That was kind of the idea. And then later, the amount of curriculum was overwhelming, but later I was able to find Charlotte Mason, the curriculum ambassador online, Charlotte Mason, read her books, and that's how we decided, okay, this is our path. Now we are settled. This is where we're standing. But essentially it was this desire to have them close to us and give them the life, that they needed to have before 6 years old or seven.
We'll come back to Charlotte Mason in a minute because I know you've done a lot of work there. But one of the things that seems to be happening nationally is an increasing number of Hispanic, Latino families, whether they're immigrants or born in the US, are gravitating towards homeschooling, microschooling, and other forms of unconventional education. Does that ring true in your experience? And if so, why do you think that is?
Well, there is this I think I think what's happening is basically many Hispanics that have lived in the United States for a long, long time. I can see how they have realized it's like this awakening, realizing that there is this identity that they have lost throughout the years. Maybe the previous generations didn't want to speak Spanish to them. And I've met many Hispanics who don't speak the language and feel that need, that desire that this would have happened. And so when we, as a society, when we celebrate other cultures, which has been happening now for decades, we realize ourselves, but we also open the door for others to realize that there is something so rich when you can keep your own culture, as opposed to just leave it behind, erase it, become this new person, which you can. You can become this new person. In the United States, it's been my experience, because I was born in Chile. I'm very passionate about Chile, but at the same time, I realized how my children now being born here and being this citizen of the United States, for them, their identity is a little bit more complex than mine. And that is something that I welcome and the Hispanics that I have known, at least, they're looking for that, like going back to that cultural heritage, so to speak. I also have friends who are recent immigrants, and that's a different story because for most of them, they feel that they don't have the tools
Mm.
to homeschool in the United States because they probably their English is not great. But I can see that some of them are taking the plunge and doing it anyway and just getting the books, doing it anyway. Because there's also been a lot of bullying at school. So those situations, as
Mm.
parents, of course, you want to run away from those things. So,
Mm.
but those are kind of two different Latino experiences, let's say.
So talk a little bit about your work. I know that you've been very engaged in ensuring that there's high quality literature in Spanish that's part of the homeschool curriculum. And I would broaden that out to say a cultural experience as well. Talk a little bit about how you're specifically driving to make sure all that stuff is available for families who need it.
Okay, so back in 2019, I set up this website with the translation of Charlotte Mason. So this is an educational series. It talks in very general terms how to educate your kids at home, how to educate them in a school, about character formation, different things. We are so isolated, but at the same time, there's so much information. So I decided just to create this organization. It's like a network of educators. So we are Spanish speaking educators. We are bilingual educators. There's many, many, many educators from the United States that are have Hispanic heritage there. And so we share a lot of how we practice education in our homes. And so we find resources. And what I started doing very early on is to find well-written books in Spanish because I didn't want to read translations. Like I thought, if I am bilingual, if my children have the blessing of being bilingual, why would we want to read, certain words? I'm a translator, so I'm not looking down on translation, but if you're bilingual, why? Why would you want to? So I made these huge lists of books and I put them on this website for free so people can go there and see, yeah, according to different ages, find options for the kids to read. And these are books, again, there's a little tiny section with translated works because you also need that. But in general, it's these books of great, great quality, the ones that are going to touch your soul and you're going to be completely inspired by these books. So besides that, there's a number of resources for different types of families, and you can go there, find everything you need. You can participate in the group as well for free. All of this has been volunteer work. Ambleside Online is a curriculum that blessed me a lot when I started, even though I left it behind a little bit in my path. But it was a volunteer work, and I thought this is amazing, that we can give this for free.
Mm.
So there's no financial barrier for people to achieve this education, which is essentially what Charlotte Mason wanted. She wanted all the children to have this rich education.
So that's Charlotte Mason en Español. Is that the name of
It's
the website?
uh-huh, Charlotte Mason Español because
Español. Ah, oui.
Español.org.
.org. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, this is fantastic. Thank you so much. Is there anything I didn't ask you about that would be really important?
Well, I think that one of the things that I wanted to mention is why in the United States we should teach in Spanish or teach literature in Spanish. The history of the Americas started with the Spanish Empire arriving here and leaving a incredible mark. Whether we like it or not, whether whatever whatever we think about it, it left a mark, and all that to say that there is a lot of it Spanish speaking literature that we should be reading because it's classical, because it's stood the test of time, and it's part of our identity, especially for us that are Spanish speaking, and even the Southwest of the United States, with the whole history that we have there. I think it's important that we know these books. We read them.
And your point that it's actually not just families that have Hispanic heritage, but all Americans that ought to
Exactly.
know that history and
Exactly.
ideally be able to read it in its original form.
Exactly.